So, looking now at Digibyte, um, Digibyte and NXT have both been around for a hell of a long time. I was aware that Digibyte had been, NXT um, is has also been, but I wasn't so aware of it because it's at 132nd place on Coin Market Cap. I mean, this 37 million market cap is actually very small compared to Digibyte, which has I think like 160 million. I don't know. I'd have to check, but it's a hell of a lot more. Digibyte is in about 40th place, and NXT is in 130th place. So NXT, of course, it's not in the eye anymore of most crypto investors. It's really kind of one of those niche ones which may explode and go crazy, but it's definitely higher risk because a lot of these coins, which once they leave the top 100, it can be hard to get back, and more importantly, a lot of them will just fade into nothingness and go into, one of the 2,000 coins which just don't make it. So that being said, if we start looking now at DGB on the weekly, we see something similar to NXT in terms of the support zone. Over here, NXT, it's quite clearly at this sort of 500 level, whereas for DGB, it's a little bit less clear in that, of course, we have this double bottom here. You could even call it a triple. Actually, it is a triple bottom here, similar to NXT. Actually, you also have the triple bottom at this level, so 226. And if DGB breaks that, well, it still has room to fall further before, you know, before this trade is even necessarily, before it hits rock bottom, let's say, because NXT has already hit rock bottom several times. So from that perspective, you could say NXT is a cleaner trade because once it breaks this, if it breaks this, then it's much harder to validate this trade. Whereas if DGB breaks this level, it could still just bottom out over here and then explode thereafter. So that being said, if we again do something similar to what we did before with a long position, and we look at the risk to reward. So from the current level, about 300, and we risk down to about let's just say 207. Again, it's like about a 30% potential loss here. And if we just go to halfway, just approximately halfway, I mean, it's really hard to predict exactly where it will reach. I don't think it's very realistic to say, oh well, there's to kind of give probability levels for what levels it's going to reach in the future. I think it's extremely hard to predict. But one thing the general idea you can give is, well, okay, in the past there has been significant interest which has pumped it to very high levels. So if the coin continues, producing results in terms of fundamental analysis, because this of course will be a trade for many weeks or months, then we can assume that there will be some sort of similar interest coming back to previous levels. I mean, if we just take this to the previous high, we have an 800% jump there. Whereas if we take this to the previous high, it's like 1,800%, which is insane. In any case, DGB, unlike NXT, has started showing some signs that the volume might be picking up. We have this 21 moving average here of the volume. And as you can see, we were well below it for pretty much this whole downtrend. This bearish volume had us actually, it came above, but it's bearish, so we just came right down. But now we have these bulls kind of creeping up with increasing volume over here, and then another increase in volume over here. And now for the pullback, this is what we like to see. We like to see a decrease in volume. In other words, there's less interest in selling and more interest in buying. So from that perspective, DGB looks more promising because it seems to have a higher probability of actually being the bottom, or let's say there's more interest in the current prices. And if we could do a simple fib retracement, then indeed this level would be a good level to buy at. The golden zone, 618 and the 65. And we could do the same thing for NXT. But here, if we do that same analysis with the volume, you can see that there's just so little volume here at all compared to before. So it's very hard to say that this is out of the downtrend. Not to mention that we're well below all these EMAs. But if we just take these out for a second, just to simplify things, and again, if we do the same type of thing here, where we do that, then again, of course, this is, well, actually, this isn't even at the 618. It's possible that in Elliott wave analysis you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves, and sometimes it would require deeper analysis, but sometimes you will do a retracement of the third wave. So this would be 1, 2, and this might be the third wave. In that case, even then we haven't quite reached the 618. So I'm not too crazy about NXT being a bottom here. The only thing which makes it interesting is that the risk to reward is higher, and the stop loss is cleaner. So it's more sort of obvious where it is. But DGB, on the other hand, is showing a higher probability of actually having potentially bottomed out. Even though, that being said, neither of them are out of a downtrend. As mentioned before, it's like, if we just take this out, just go to the moving averages, 50, 100, and 200. Okay, so the 50 is the green line. You see on the uptrend, we were all right above it. We broke through it. Downtrend, we kind of yo-yoed around it. And now we've touched it again, and we've resisted from it. So it's like, that's not the greatest sign. And of course, the 50 has just crossed through the 100. So again, that's not a bullish. That's exactly the opposite of bullish. So it's like, we're definitely not out of a downtrend. But if we were to buy and we wanted a really awesome risk to reward ratio, then now would I guess be a good time. But yeah, it's a bit of a gamble. And that's pretty much it, I think, for this analysis. I mean, obviously, the volume is something to be concerned about, in the sense that STX, I mean, that's never heard of that, and they somehow have 23% of the volume for NXT. So even if the volume had increased, which it hasn't, or at least not on Bittrex, it hasn't, this isn't a good sign, because it means that a lot of the interest in this coin is probably fake. And CoinEgg also isn't one of the top 10. Only Bittrex and Poloniex, I think, were confirmed to sort of be legitimate exchanges in terms of how they report their volume, or how legitimate the volume is. So whereas if you go to DGB, the story is a little bit different. Here we have Bittrex having a lot of, actually, I didn't even notice this before, Byte. I mean, what the hell is Byte? I've never even heard of it. It's just, I just don't think that's, I mean, we looked at this article, or rather I looked at it a while back, and this is not one of the top 10, which they sort of recommend as being legitimate in terms of the exchange volume. So it's hard to even trust the volume. But on Bittrex, at least, there's more confidence that this is a legitimate exchange. And yeah, in the end, and the conclusion is that, yes, this could be an amazing buy, in the sense that we get very close to the bottom and it explodes. But do we have a high probability of this trade working out? Right now, I would say no. Like, it's not a high probability. It's a gamble. It could work out, and if it does, it'll be amazing. And to be fair, like, you could look at it from this perspective, where you say, okay, well, even if I think there's just a 20% chance of this trade working out, you would need a 5-to-1 odds. And man, this risk to reward is so sick that I can't even see yeah, there we go. There's the risk to reward, 20. So you would only need it to reach, if you think this works out 20% of the time, you would need this to reach only this level over here. So in other words, if 80% of the time you stop loss out over here, and 20% of the time you reach this level, in other words, if this trade fails 4 out of 5 times, you'll still break even, assuming that one time it reaches this level. And that's a pretty awesome thing to think about, but, it's it's a gamble. It just sounds nice, but there's no sort of real sign that that's actually going to happen. Yeah, that's pretty much how I'm thinking about it.